I would like to call the June 14th, 2022 Longmont City Council regular session to order. Councilwoman Martin is here. She will be here in a few minutes, so we'll wait. We'll do the roll call now, if you don't mind, and then we'll just add her. There she is. She's making an entrance, right?
I will go slowly. Mayor Peck.
Present.
Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Waters. Here. Councilmember Yarbrough. And Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We do the roll call, please. Stand for the pledge. I'm nervous.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilwoman Yarbrough will not join us tonight. She had another engagement that she could not get out of. So as a reminder to the public, this meeting can be viewed on the live stream. You can watch it on the publicmedia.org/watch or on our YouTube channel. Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their names on the list will have the opportunity to speak during public hearing items this evening or at the final call, public invited to be heard at the end of the meeting. We need to approve the minutes of May 24th, 2022. Can I have a motion?
Second.
So it's been moved by Councilman Waters, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Let's vote. Okay, so that passes unanimously with Councilwoman Yarbrough absent. Do we have any agenda revisions, Dawn?
No revisions, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any submissions of documents and motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items to future agendas? I do have a motion to make. And bear with me because I just put it in my head and have not written it down. So I would like to direct staff to put on general comments for the next meeting that at your discretion. An ordinance to ban open carry weapons within the city of Longmont, to have a waiting period of 10 days before the acceptance of a weapon. It can be purchased, but wait 10 days before you can purchase it. The age requirement of 21 for all weapons that are purchased, to make it universal, since handguns have a 21 age limit, but other types of weapons you can be 18, so we'd like to change that to 21 to make it a universal age limit, and to prohibit the unserialized firearms, also known as ghost guns. Do I have a second? Okay. That's been moved by Councilor Martin. Can we have discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. So the nuts and bolts are going to come out when we actually get to see the ordinance. As such, I will vote so we can see the ordinance and have adequate discussion at the appropriate time.
Councilor Waters.
Thanks. Number 8 down here. I'm going to vote to support your motion. I think, could I just offer one?
Sure.
I don't know if it's an amendment, but I think it's the purchase followed by a 10-day waiting period to gain possession.
Correct,
fire.
you said it correctly, I did not.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Hidalgo Faring.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Mayor. So, and just to clarify, I think, Mayor Pro Tem spoke to this as well. I will be voting for this so we can have the adequate discussion. The other thing that I don't want to forget about is really the continued work of having that community engagement, and looking for other means of, reporting. You see something, you say something. What can we do to encourage our citizens to report? The other thing is addressing, I think it was already addressed in that waiting period. I think that was something, I think about people who, folks, and this was something that's very personal to me, is that having that time to think, before acquiring something and holding it through. But the other thing is I want to be able to talk to the right people in order to come up with the right solutions for the problem. So, I will be supporting this so we can have further discussion and have community input as the ordinance is getting written out. So, thank you.
So thank you for that discussion. And the reason that I didn't make the motion to put this on a first reading, the ordinance on a first reading, it's going to come back on general business. We want the staff to do the research and bring back the wording, and then we will discuss it. Whereas on first reading, we either have to pass it or pull it off the agenda. But we want to open it up for a discussion, which is why it's going to be on general business. So let's vote. Oh, I didn't see you. So.
She's already turned on it.
I didn't do it.
Counselor.
Just for clarification, this is the first of several that came out of our pre-session, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by that.
I heard waiting period. This piece of direction is about a waiting period.
No.
It was about all of them.
It's about, 5 things I put on there. It was the open carry, banning open carry within the city of Longmont. Signage, which just to reinforce that we would put signs on all municipal buildings. A waiting or cooling off period for 10 days after purchasing, possession.
So
And two more,
oh.
age requirement of 21, and prohibiting unserialized firearms known as ghost guns.
Right, and the thing that confused me was it sounded in retrospect when I was replaying it, because I know I seconded it, but it sounds like all one ordinance. And is it your intention with this motion that we would have the opportunity to break it up into several and maybe only pass one and not all?
Councilor Martin, that is why it's on general business. So when it
Okay.
comes back, we can discuss at that point, after we get the research, if we want to go forward and how we want to go forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm fine then.
Okay, let's vote. So I'm going to make one more motion, and that is a motion to direct staff that in the future, at your discretion, to set a date for a community discussion specifically on gun safety within Longmont. Because in our discussion, I don't know what you could hear or not hear. It's very, very important that we get the community feedback, and the last time we did that was in 2018. And that's been a while. Things have changed. So we're going to have a community discussion with that as well. So do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, that's been seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Faring. Let's discuss it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Waters.
I'm clearly supportive of this concept. I hope it's broader than just a meeting or a forum or a one-off kind of an engagement. Where we fell short And I don't know how much responsibility to take for falling short back in the fall of 2018 for what was a pretty good start to bring the community together on these issues. That just lost steam as we got into the action planning process, because it's hard work. It's a heavy lift, but it is the basis. If there's going to be a culture change, because that's the only, at the end of the day, we'll do what we need to do with ordinances. I know I sound like a broken record. What will make a real difference is a change in culture, not just a change in ordinances or in addition to a change in ordinances. And to change the culture is going to be required. It's going to require way more than a one-off conversation. It's going to require the leadership of most of the people in this room and a lot of people who are not in this room. So I hope that motion, what the staff brings back, I don't know if it's an amendment to your motion, but it is a serious public engagement process with an end in mind, and that is protocols, guidance. I'm not certain what the product would be, but that would increase the likelihood that we could reduce risks of violence of every sort in Longmont, in the interest of health and safety. So,
Thank you for that. And I want to add on to that. I totally agree. I think where we fell short last time was that we didn't have an action item. I always think that when you bring things up and have a big discussion, you shouldn't just leave the room and then it's over. There should be an action item with the community on what do we do to go forward. So I agree. That should not be the only conversation. It shouldn't end with just one conversation. People go home and they think about what's been said and what's been done. And then we come back and say, what do you think? Where should we go with this? And how can you help us? And because it's a huge community effort. It's not just up to 6 people up here. So thank you. Are there any other motions? Oh, we have to vote. Okay, let's vote on this motion. So that carries unanimously with Councillor Yarbrough absent. So, City Manager, do you have any reports for us?
No reports, Mayor, Council.
Okay. We do have one presentation. It's a proclamation honoring Juneteenth weekend. So this is a proclamation designating June 17th through the 19th, 2022, as honoring Juneteenth weekend in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas Juneteenth is the oldest celebration of the emancipation of enslaved African Americans, named after the events that took place on the June 19th, 1865. And whereas news of the end of slavery did not reach frontier areas of the U.S. for more than 2 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863, and months after the conclusion of the Civil War. And whereas Juneteenth is an example of America's commitment to liberty, and June 19th is celebrated and recognizes the historical significance of the end of chattel slavery. And whereas many African Americans continue the tradition of celebrating Juneteenth as inspiration and encouragement for future generations, and for more than 155 years, Juneteenth Day celebrations have been held to honor African American freedom while encouraging self-development and respect for all cultures. And whereas the faith and strength of character demonstrated by former enslaved African Americans remains an example for all people of the U.S., regardless of the background, religion, or race. And whereas on June 17, 2021, President Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, which officially recognized Juneteenth Day of observance, making June 19th a federal holiday. Now, therefore, I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me, and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim June 17th to the 19th, 2022, as honoring Juneteenth weekend in Longmont, and encourage the Longmont community to engage in appropriate celebrations and reflections of Juneteenth. Oh, I see that we have some comments.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council people. I am Madeline Strong-Woodley, and I rose to accept the proclamation Mayor Peck presented. We'd like to accept it and in honor of a very special person that spearheaded our kickoff for Juneteenth. We decided last year that we wanted to have the Juneteenth flag raised and flying. And this courageous woman, 2 weeks out, took it on. We wanted flags flying in every county. And she said, I was just so sure she was going to say no, but she said yes. And not only did she say yes, she did it and got the flags flying. It was the start. It was our inaugural year. This year, she has covered the county. We have some municipalities that are flying as many as 12, which is, I just say, yay, yay, Boulder County. I would like to accept this, and I'm going to ask Liz Marasco to come and join me here. And I'm going to let her speak it.
Wow, what an honor. Thank you, Madeline. I am honored to receive this proclamation tonight. It has been my great privilege to have played a small role in getting these flags flying across the county. Our entire community is better and stronger for the work that Madeline, Dr. DeAndre Taylor, the NAACP, and others have done to bring Juneteenth to Boulder County. I look forward to many more Juneteenths for years to come in Boulder County. Thank you.
Madeline and Liz, would you like a picture?
Yes, please. Okay. And I'd like my sister, Glenda Strong Robinson, to join us here, as well as Milene. These ladies work extremely hard for our community. And thank you so much.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
So we're now at the first public invited to be heard. It looks like we have quite a few people who would like to come and speak. So what I'm going to do is call someone up and then put somebody on deck and someone else after them. So 3 people at a time so that we can move through faster. The first one is Christy Dillon, and then Charlie Frank will be on deck with Aaron, and I think it's Abel next. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Christy Dillon. I'm a Longmont resident. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to ask the City Council to take action for gun safety for our Longmont community. The time for change is now. In 2019, I spoke to you about how gun violence impacts our community after our country experienced an especially grisly summer of mass shootings. The deadliest shootings that summer involved an AR or AK-style gun. These weapons continue to be popular guns of choice for mass shootings in our country. Last month, 10 people were shot dead in a racist, hate-inspired shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo. 10 people were murdered at a grocery store just 20 miles from here last year. The victims were either working at these stores or just shopping for groceries, an errand we all run every week. 3 weeks ago today, 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers were brutally murdered in a Uvalde, Texas elementary school classroom. The names of the teachers that died that day, desperately trying to defend their students, are Irma Garcia and Eva Morales. My friends who are teachers are shaken to their cores. They do not want to be armed, period. Teachers already have to cope with the emotions and trauma brought on by active shooter and lockdown training. Did you know that during a school lockdown drill, if a child is outside the classroom, in the restroom, they're expected to stand on top of the toilet and be quiet? We're training kids as young as 5 years old to hide in closets and stand on top of toilets so that they're not murdered. What are we doing? I've been thinking a lot about the parents of the children who died in Uvalde, in Oxford, Michigan, in Parkland, Florida, in Littleton, and the numerous other schools where mass shootings have taken place. I can't quit thinking about how I would be ruined, not just by the horrific loss of my child, but by thinking over and over about the terror and fear my child must have felt right up until the moment that they were shot and killed. Our society isn't just negatively impacted because we've lost children and adults to gun violence, but also due to the ripple effects of everyone left behind and the trauma that they endure. This is the continued reality for parents and families across America. Gun violence is now the #1 cause of death for children and teenagers in the US. Let me repeat that. Gun violence is now the #1 cause of death for children and teens in America. This is who we become as Americans, and I have never felt so ashamed. We have an opportunity to put new regulations into place for our community that can save lives. These include, but are not limited to, the following: prohibition of open carry in public spaces, a waiting period of 10 days when purchasing any firearm, raising the legal age to purchase long guns to 21, and lastly, a ban on the future sales or distribution of assault-style weapons. Thank you for considering these regulations.
Thank you. No clapping. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, we have people on both sides of this issue tonight. So out of respect, let's don't clap for what is being said. We do not want to insult the other side. We're here as a democracy. Thank you. Charlie.
Hi, guys. I don't know how many people we have here in Longmont, probably over 100,000 good law-abiding citizens. And I don't think we should enact any more gun laws or gun regulations that are going to affect everyone because of a small handful of few bad actors. Over the past 3 decades, violent crime has dropped by more than half. The number of privately owned firearms in the United States has doubled in that same period. The number of people carrying firearms for protection outside the home has also risen to all-time highs as violent crime dropped. Mass murderers have been repeatedly deterred or stopped by citizens carrying lawfully concealed firearms. Concealed carry laws help reduce the number of rapes and robberies overall. It makes sense that criminals would be far less likely to commit a crime if they believe their victim might be armed. In fact, a major study of 2,000 felons in the state and federal prisons across the United States showed that criminals actually fear armed citizens more than they fear the police. Cities with the strictest gun controls have the highest crime rates. Does gun control reduce crime? The evidence says no. In fact, cities with some of the most stringent gun laws, like New York and Chicago, suffer from some of the highest violent crime rates. Shootings and murder rates in Chicago surged 50% in 2020, and that state recorded the highest number of gun-related homicides on record. Gun-controlled Chicago became the most murderous city in the country. New York saw similarly alarming statistics in 2020. Homicides increased 41% and shootings increased an astounding 95%. Studies have shown that homicide rates tend to rise when law-abiding citizens are unable to own and carry firearms for self-defense. And the recent statistics from some of the county's most anti-gun cities confirm this conclusion. Gun control doesn't work, so what does? We need punishments for lawbreakers, not more gun controls that have been proven not to work. It would be much more effective to enforce the laws we have with harsh punishments for the bad actors than to restrict the law-abiding citizens with laws that bad guys will just break. 99% of gun owners are good law-abiding citizens, and it's been proven time after time that gun control laws don't work. Our current justice system needs to be changed. Criminals get a slap on the hand and let go, or little is done. There needs to be tough punishments and hard labor imposed for criminals so that they are made to pay back for the car they stole and ruined. Or if they take a life, they lose theirs. Quick justice. It's not right to punish or restrict the vast majority with more and more laws.
Can you state your name and address? I forgot to ask you.
I'm Charles Frank, proud Longmont citizen, and I want to thank you all
What's
for
your
all
address, sir?
206 Longs Peak Avenue.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you all so much for all you do for all of us.
Aaron Abel.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Aaron Abel. I'm a Longmont resident. I've been here for 3 years. I really enjoyed sitting on your study session. That was very informative, and I really respect the professionalism of the council in realizing the limits to human power. I moved to Longmont because I feel safe here.
I'm sorry, I have a point of order. My understanding of our rules of procedure was that speakers were supposed to state their name and address. Is there something else written in?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then the first person speaker needs to come and give her address then.
Yeah, she did.
Do you live in Longmont?
Sir, can you give me your address, please?
It's 1517 Lincoln Street.
Thank you.
Ward 3.
Continue.
I moved to Longmont from coastal California, and during my time in coastal California, I lived in San Francisco, which has all of these restrictions and more. While living in San Francisco, I experienced a home invasion and frequent harassment on the streets, including muggings. I was never allowed to protect myself. I faced weapons and attacks from criminals. I moved to Longmont with my family because it's safe here. You guys have a great city. You're already safe here. I mean, sure, you got things you can improve, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it, and I'm really impressed that you guys were able to take this massive outside pressure from a national group and think about your community first. Because in California, we get a lot of that. And there's just no community. It's all pressure from national groups. So I'm going to keep it quick, but thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. So I'm going to call the next three: Lisa McMullen, Nicholas Dwayne, and Rod Brandenburg. Please come down, all three of you. 2 of you can sit in these chairs so that we can move it along. Lisa, would you state your name and address, please?
Hello, my name is Lisa McMullen, and I live at 341 Ranchview Drive. Good evening to all of you. My name is Lisa. I'm also a Colorado native, and I'd like to let you know that the mainstream media would have you believe that all these mass shooters are headed to every school in the nation, supported by violent gun owners, stigmatized as hunting all these innocent children. And in actuality, it's the exact opposite. Mass shooters are usually attention seekers, mentally unstable, and self-loathing part of our society. The media's focus is from a panic-stricken gun grabbers that organize a plan of attack on us law-abiding citizens, CCW holders and gun owners. And in theory, no guns is a safer environment, and it feeds their anxiety. But in reality, mass shooters actually target gun-free zones or schools that do not have security, or situations where they have let their guard down, complacency. The manifestos of these kinds of people have been circulating since the beginning of time. Dictators have always targeted villages that did not want to fight back. This translates into our modern times as gun-free zones and citizens that are willing participants to be a victim. Mass shooters occur in places where CCWs are very rarely issued and are restricted. CCWs have saved innocent lives time and time again because our government agencies are bogged down with politics. 49% of most mass shootings end before the police even arrive. 67 of them end in suicide. The rest are stopped by people with CCWs. The misconception is that you can walk into a gun store and buy a gun just like you can a pair of shoes. And in reality, I had to be federally vetted and trained by an FFL certified instructor and apply for my CCW. On May 27th, the woman stopped a mass shooter at a graduation party. Boulder, CCW. Arvada, CCW. Stop those shooters from continuing. There is a video of a woman out on the internet with a group of women and children. A man walked up and tried to kidnap one of the children. All the women ran except one. She reached into her purse, pulled out her gun, and shot him in the arm. She secured the scene while the others tended to his wounds. This is the definition of a CCW. Mass shooters have made it their goal to target communities that implement gun-free zones, and it is in their manifesto. I fear soft on crime agendas and a one-size-fits-all government control, teaching victimhood instead of fighting back. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Nicholas.
Good evening. My name is Nick Dwayne. I live at 333 Sumner Street. Mayor Peck, since you said Second Amendment rights, that leads me to believe that you might need some education in civics and maybe in the Constitution. The correct term would be the Second Amendment protections. We don't get our rights from the government or the Constitution. Our rights are from our Creator, inalienable. And that's a good thing, because seeing that we don't get our rights from the government, it means they can't take them away. If you actually believe that passing a resolution is going to stop someone with deviant plans, you're insane. That's not going to work. And it's shown not to work, as someone mentioned before. Chicago has some of the worst crime in the country, and it has some of the most gun control laws. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Rod?
Good evening. Good evening, Council. It's been a while since I've been up here, but I've been in Longmont for 32 years.
Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Rod Brandenburg, Grandpa's Pawn and Gun, 104 9th Avenue. We used to be at 3rd and Main for 16 years, but, 32 years, I've seen a lot happen here. I started with the Blackjack Pizza, bought Grandpa's Pawn in November of 1999. And as I was sitting listening in council office over there, I'm amazed at what you folks don't know and what you folks don't know. Longmont Police, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI actually pay people to come into our stores and try to buy guns illegally. And since I've been doing this for 25 years, we go by the letter of the law. There is not an industry more restricted than we are. So if we sell a gun to an outlaw and they go do something stupid, that's on my conscience. Erie Police came into our store 1 month ago, said they had a woman put $200 down on a concealed weapon, or on a handgun. It was a layaway, so she had a month to pay it off. Erie PD came in and said, listen, we would appreciate if you shut this down. Her family members are concerned about her owning a gun. And her family members are worried about what she will do to them if they find out that she was reported by them. So we shut the sale down. I don't want to be front page of the news that we sold a gun to somebody who shouldn't have had one. She would have passed a background check. She has mental issues, but her family's afraid to report those. There are 8 stores in Longmont that sell guns, and we've been doing it for 28 years. It would shock you how many guns we've sold, but we're one of the highest volume dealers in the state. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms sends other dealers to me that can't get their books right. They're not doing their procedures right. They send them to us. We train them, no charge. You have a damn good operator in this community. And these silly laws that you're wanting to pass, I'll share a few statistics with you guys. 997 out of 1,000 crimes that are committed with a gun, the gun was illegally begotten. That means criminals are getting the guns. I sent City Council, the 4 of you sitting there, a videotape of our store being broke into August 5th, 2020. Woman stole a 2018 GMC pickup, smashed it through the side of our business, took an axe to our display cases. Roxana Aguilar broke into 7 gun stores in a month. Was contacted by the police 56 times from January 1st to August 4th. Committed her first felony when she was 13 years old. And she is back out on the streets.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you. And I can go on a lot longer. I would love it if City Council would stop by. I can answer most of your questions. Okay, thank you.
Mitch Schott. No clapping. No clapping, please. Everybody gets to have a voice here. Rod Leitner. It's not Rod. Looks like Ron. Jeffrey Wilson and Mitch Schott. Please come down, all 3 of you. And your name is, sir?
My name's Jeff Wilson.
Okay, Jeff, just a moment. I'm going to bring down Jeffrey Bering and Wayne Aiello.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mitch. No, he wasn't. He was Jeffrey.
My name's Jeff Wilson. I live at 2936 Miniker Place. Okay.
Thank you.
And I expect we'll hear a lot about the Second Amendment, but I'd like to bring up the 14th Amendment, which is equal protection under the law. And when I live just inside the Longmont city limits, and anything that you pass to prescribe, to circumscribe my rights to protect myself, to keep and bear arms, discriminates against me relative to people who live a stone's throw away. So I'd like to bring up that aspect of this, that we should avoid creating little fiefdoms where rules are different. That goes for areas that are sanctuary areas too. That's another argument. But in general, just any situation where we're creating different laws that contradict the Constitution, we need to keep that in check. Another aspect I'd like to bring up is the ex post facto principle. When I moved to Longmont in 2016, I had no idea that there was any possibility of gun laws being gradually tightened around the citizens of Longmont relative to people in unincorporated Boulder County. So I'd like you to consider these 2 conditions, these 2 reasons to not single out the citizens of Longmont for special control and special restrictions relative to their neighbors. Another thing that I heard right near the end of the previous session was how if there were a 60-40 popular vote against concealed carry, there would be considered, you would consider action against that. And, you know, I'd like to remind you this isn't a democracy, it's a constitutional republic where we have, based on the Constitution, we have these rights to keep and bear firearms, and it doesn't matter if everybody in Longmont decides to give up their guns. I shouldn't have to due to a popular vote. So That's all I have to say, and I yield my time to the next person.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. My name is Jeffrey Boring. I live at 615 Emory Street, just up a block, a couple blocks from here. First of all, I just wanted to thank you all for taking the extra time to meet before tonight's meeting and start this conversation. I think the time is now to have this conversation. It's really important. And I think I understand that the steps you're taking now. There's 5 issues that are framing the next discussion, and you're going to continue to invite the public to participate in the process. Just one comment, I was in this room. It was difficult to understand who was speaking when you guys were in the pre-session meeting. So hopefully future meetings can occur here so we can see who's making each comment. I also think it would be worthwhile to have a fact sheet, a simple fact sheet. I understand from your city attorney that you don't want to do a comprehensive undertaking of the Second Amendment, but I do think some basic educational tools are really useful. A 2 to 4 page fact sheet. You talked about open carry and concealed carry and ghost guns and assault style weapons. And I think there was confusion among city council members, and there was certainly some confusion here about exactly what you're talking about. So I think defining those terms so the public knows exactly what you're talking about could be really useful down the road. I would like to say that another thing that was brought up during the pre-session discussion was concerns about enforcement. What is enforceable? And I think that is a really important element to this discussion. There was a comment made that some of our neighbors supported ordinances without even considering the cost of enforcement. And I just skimmed through some of the information that was provided in the packet, and it did say that those recommendations were made by staff. Staff knew that there was going to be some changes in enforcement. Those jobs may change, and they were still willing to support those ordinances. So certainly something to keep in mind. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to other city council members at other jurisdictions. Understand what they took into consideration when those decisions were made. I think that's really important. I would like to go on the record in saying that I support a 10-day waiting period. I work with at-risk teens, and oftentimes at-risk teens become at-risk adults. A switch doesn't flip when they become 18 years old. And a 10-day waiting period would allow them to take a moment, maybe have a positive interaction with someone in their life, get distracted from this pain that they're feeling, and make a good decision, a better decision that protects themselves and protects other members of the community. So I think that is a smart, common sense ordinance to keep in mind. And then just last thing I would mention that I think it hasn't been mentioned before is if we can, I'm sure there are a number of responsible gun owners in the audience, and nobody wants gun violence. Nobody supports that, obviously. Can we also come up with some measures, some incentives to encourage responsible storage of weapons? I'm not sure what that looks like, but can we give things away that make that easier? So I'll end my comments there. Thank you for your time.
You were listening. We discussed those things. Wayne.
Yeah, hi, my name's Wayne Aiello, 1276 6th Avenue. And thank you for giving me a few minutes here. Most of you seem like reasonable people. Aaron, you and I have shared a beer over at Oscar Blues. You probably don't remember because we both had masks on during COVID. Marcia, we've exchanged thoughts on Facebook. And when this shooting in Texas happened, you said, this is time. I have to take action. I can't sit by anymore. Mayor Peck, you said the same thing. That's common ground we have, because I'm sure I don't agree with you on everything, but I want to take action to help and ensure that our kids or any kids in this country don't get shot, right? But we're looking at it a little bit backwards. Like, half of us are here, or more than half of us, most of the room, or a lot of the rooms here, because we're looking out after our gun rights, and other people want to take them away. But at the same time, isn't it about the kids? So when I look at things like prohibit open carry, well, I've never heard of an open carry shooter just opening up on kids. Okay, it hasn't happened. 10-day waiting period, maybe there's some credence to some waiting. I'm not totally opposed to that. Some of these things could be spur of the moment. I do think that this kid in Texas, though, he actually bought his first handgun weeks before, and then he went and got the second one the day before. So would that have stopped it? Maybe, maybe not. Age 21, we could discuss that. I think if you take that away, why don't we get rid of the right to vote at 21 or make that 21 as well? If kids aren't smart enough to have guns or drink, maybe they shouldn't be voting. But let me get to the issue of the kids' protection. If we want to take real action here to help, why don't we do things in the schools to protect them? I look around, when I came
Sir,
in today,
can you look- okay.
when I came in today, right, how many police officers are here tonight protecting you and us, right? They're doing their duty, they're armed, right? Why can't we have armed guards in the schools? Why can't we have metal detectors in the schools? And why can't we invent, I work for an electronics company, I know this is possible. Why can't we have a panic button that anybody could pull at a school that locks not only the outer doors, but every classroom door from the outside so an intruder can't get in to an individual classroom? All those things are possible today. I'd rather see our money and our study going toward improved security at the schools. That's the only way to stop these people, because doing all the things I listed may save a life or two. It may prevent an incident or two. Okay, maybe. But it's not going to prevent them all. And a determined, mentally unstable person is going to find a way into those schools. So I would feel a lot better if we had a way to stop them, to lock them out, to have armed security, trained armed security that can try to take them out when needed, and to reduce or eliminate any death in those schools. So I haven't heard any discussion of that today, and I would love to know, I'm going to end a few seconds earlier, just love to know if that's something that you guys have considered and would consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Jarrett, George Bach, and Jeff Limbacher. Can all three of you come down so that you're ready? Oh, there you are.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm Kathy Jarrett. I live at 1532 Stewart Street in Longmont, and I have lived here for over 50 years. I remember reading that just before World War II in France and Germany in the 1930s, the population was systematically relieved of their firearms. Farmers in France who used their guns for hunting had to take their guns to the local city or county or whatever and give them up. This was in preparation for the Nazis who were going to be coming in so that the people could not defend themselves. On another note, I've been a teacher in the public schools in Longmont and St. Vrain Valley for over 2 decades. I would not be opposed to carrying or having in my classroom the means to protect myself and the students in my school. When at Uvalde, because of the rules for the police on whether it was a active shooter situation or if it was a hostage situation, they had different rules. They stood outside while the children were being killed. The main problem is not the guns. The main problem is the people who use the guns. Many of these people who use these guns to kill other people hated their school experience, hated other people. They felt lonely, they felt bullied, and they wanted revenge. And they would be considered mentally unstable. But those are the kind of people who come into these classrooms through windows or doors or unlocked spaces. We need to change the way that we teach and encourage people to realize that they are human beings made in the image of God and they have worth. Many of these people think they have no worth, nothing to live for, and they're going to take other people out on their way out. The problem is not the gun, the problem is the shooter and their idea of themselves and of society. I think we need a society that cares for each other, and some of this would not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. George.
George Bach, 145 East 5th Avenue. And I'm here. I think there ought to be equal treatment to everybody. I'm not against the Second Amendment, but I don't see why we use the Second Amendment to let one company that makes a dangerous product market to 18 to 21s and make a lot of profit and we take another company that makes a dangerous product, and they can't get beer until they're 21 without an ID. The other part of it is, I think there's a quick solution. I was listening to your previous meeting, and what we need to do is take the motor vehicle law, open it up to registration, cross out vehicle, write guns, register every year, get a tax back every year, and then go into licensing and do the same thing. Cross out motor vehicles, write guns in there, and then the 18-year-olds, they need to go get a license, go down, take a test, and have their picture taken and the whole bit, and then they can use the dangerous weapon.
Thank you. Jeff.
My name is Jeff Limbacher. I live at 855 Elliott Street. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here today with the hope that I can be a voice for thousands of gun owners in Longmont who either cannot make this meeting or simply do not wish to risk the conflict that can arise from publicly announcing one's views. I'm here today to oppose the ordinances under consideration by the Council with respect to gun control. The ordinances that were given to Colorado municipalities by the Giffords Law Center and Everytown for Gun Safety. The ordinance is written by lawyers outside of Colorado and presented in Mad Lib-like fill-in-the-blank format. Simply add your city name and sign it into law. These ordinances claim to be a model for cities to adopt to make positive change in the violence epidemic in our country, and I firmly believe that is not the case. As they are written, these ordinances will do little beyond making the law-abiding gun owner feel like they do not have a place in this city. I moved to Colorado from Texas a number of years ago, and until recently I was a resident of Boulder. As a conservative, pro-Second Amendment, Christian, cisgendered male, I can honestly say that was not a very welcoming experience. Boulder's homogeneity and suffocating echo chamber-like political environment made me feel like an outsider, not to mention the Texan jokes. In mid-2018, Boulder City Council drafted and passed their assault weapons ban. I wrote to each member of the City Council, pleading to engage in conversation about the matter. I attempted to voice my concerns, start a conversation, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. I received one half-hearted response addressing just one of my concerns. I invited them to talk to me, go to the range with me, learn about firearms and the people who use them, and they wanted nothing of it. Many others like me argued that the ordinance would not actually keep the city safe, and even some city council members agreed it was mostly a symbolic gesture. And we heard the message loud and clear. They don't want us in their city. I discovered Longmont and found it to be a city of true diversity. We have people of all walks of life, all beliefs, many races, many backgrounds, and I decided in 2017 that I wanted to call Longmont my home. And after 4 years of hard work and saving money, I was able to buy a house last year. Now I'm faced with the same dilemma. I'm a resident of a city whose council is considering a similar message, and I find that we're standing on the precipice of great change. We have the opportunity to lead the charge in actually enforcing the existing laws, normalizing mental health care, knowing our neighbors, saying something when we see something, and reducing the rampant division we see in our everyday lives. A Harvard study recently found, not that recently, before the pandemic, found that 70% of Americans feel lonely. It's no wonder that we have a problem with mental health and suicide when we spend most of our time dehumanizing those we disagree with on the internet. Let us not step further into the divide by accepting these ordinances as written without engaging in constructive discourse with the community at large. Let us consider motions that will have the greatest impact while alienating the fewest members of our community. Let us embrace the diversity of thought and belief in our great city and work to find a solution we can all get behind. I don't have time to discuss the statistics, effectiveness, and legality of these matters, but I'm happy to have the conversation. I'll be sending an email to each of you with some more of my thoughts. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Jim Peel, Levi Caruso, and Lyle Guthmiller.
My name is Jim Peel. I live 459 Westview Court in Longmont. A question before I start. Okay, I don't want this on my time. You mentioned 10-day waiting period. Is that calendar days or is that business days? California is calendar days. We have a right to know that.
Sir, we don't, we just listen at this point of the council meeting. We don't engage with the public at this point.
Then I give that to you as a suggestion for consideration. Okay, my name is Jim Peel. I live at 459 Westview Court in Longmont. And there was a time in this country when if a woman got raped, some idiot would say, well, she should have laid back and enjoyed it. Well, that's what you're doing to us. You're saying we're going to take your rights, we're going to ignore the Constitution because it's beneath us, the supreme law of the state of Colorado, and you think that we should just lay back and enjoy it. And when we get mugged, when we get robbed, when we get raped, when we get shot, when we get stabbed, we're supposed to just lay back and enjoy it. You people are enablers. You're like the family members who enable their drug-addled family member, but you're enabling the criminals. And you throw us out there unarmed like fodder for these people's aberrant behavior. And we just have to lay back and take it. We don't enjoy it, and we're not going to lay back.
Thank you. No clapping. The hand wave's great.
Good evening. My name is Kevin LaRusso. I'm here on behalf of Rocky Mountain gun owners and the thousands of our members across Boulder County and Longmont. My address is 3425 South Shield Street. I do a ton of business in this town. I am all up and down the entire state of Colorado. As I said, my organization represents gun owners across this state with thousands in this county alone. The thing I worry about is fear. Fear has become a drug for this country. These last 2 years have shown us the extent people will give into their fear, the amount of just basic life, just the blissful experiences of life we are willing to give up. We are willing to give up in the name of fear, seeing our friends and family members smile. We are willing to give up in the name of fear, being able to enjoy being around human beings. Right? We spent over 2 years basically in and out of lockdowns. And now we're once again giving into our fear. We're not taking the time to rationally consider the true effects, the true realities behind what we're suggesting. We take one school shooting, which is a tragedy. Nobody wants these things to happen. And we're not asking the real questions. Somebody mentioned the Buffalo shooter. In his manifesto, he specifically said, I am targeting this grocery store because it is a gun-free zone, and I know the people will not be armed there. It was also a black community, which, oh, by the way, if you remove black males from the murder statistics, gun violence drops. Why is that? Well, it just so happens that most places in America where murders are taking place, where these gun homicides are taking place, these mass shootings are taking place, happen to be in black, gun-free neighborhoods. All across this country, Detroit, Baltimore, St. Louis, Chicago, does not matter. If you actually want to address that issue and you want to address the fact that gun violence is number one, that's where you start. But let's start with some other statistics. The very low-end estimate is 94% of all mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. 70% of criminals have said they would refuse to go into a place where they knew people were armed. Let's talk about the fact that mass shootings are not a uniquely American issue. And I ask the people on this panel, one of the questions you should consider is, do other countries produce guns? Because unless you can remove all guns from existence, criminals will get their hands on them. The difference between a law-abiding citizen concealed carrying and open carrying is the fact that you can see the gun. And if you seeing the gun is what makes you not want it to be there, not the person handling it, well, that's once again your fear removing my right to bear arms. I speak for many thousands of gun owners, over 200,000 gun owners across this state right now when I say, when you decide that the punishment for a criminal act is to then punish the law-abiding citizens, you are invading my rights, you are invading my, my sovereignty as an individual to make these decisions on my own. So I just ask you once again, we've already seen giving into fear had incredibly detrimental effects across all levels. If we give into fear once more, we are just further removing people's abilities to defend themselves. Thank you for your time.
Tyler Windmuller, Mark Spencer, and Michelle Whittle. Yes. Hello.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Lyle Guthmiller. I'm from Golden, Colorado, 601 16th Street. And I don't have a problem coming to Longmont because when I've been down at the state capitol during legislation, they've had people from New York coming in to dictate our laws in Colorado. So the fact that I'm not a resident of Longmont, I don't think is an issue. But what I want to talk about is the good people that are here today. When I look out into the audience, what do we see? People that are concerned about their rights. Good, honest people. I'm representing good, honest, law-abiding people. Good people. Where is the people representing the criminals? Stand up. Stand up. Where are the criminals? They're not here. Why? Because they don't care about our rights or our laws. We do care about our rights and our laws. So when a criminal loses his freedom and restricts their rights, why is that? Because they took rights from somebody else. So if I honor and respect people's rights, I am allowed certain permissions. If I'm a criminal and I take people's rights away, I need to be restricted. So let's use that as a device for measuring how we lose freedoms or rights. Now, why should people like myself, law-abiding citizens with clean records, lose their rights? Why should I lose a right to conceal and carry, even though the law has given me that authority throughout the state of Colorado, with a few exceptions of buildings and parks, schools? So why should I lose my rights? Who has the right to take rights from another person? Well, if they commit a crime, that's legitimate. And I do believe in the enforcement of law. But I also believe in self-defense. And I drove a long time, a decent amount of time to get here with the price of gas. And I just want to confront and see and get on record who wants to take my rights away. And I don't believe that it's for safety or for all this violence and stuff like that. It is from the local cities to the state of Colorado and that big building down there that they trashed a couple of years ago, disrespectfully trashed our house, to the offices in Washington, D.C. It's not about safety and reducing violence. It's about tyranny, control, and misdirection. And if you don't think that I haven't done my part to be legitimate in society, talk to the Wheat Ridge Police Department. I was with them this weekend stopping a crime, and I didn't use my gun.
Thank you.
I am a CCW.
Tyler.
Hello, my name is Tyler Windemuller. I live on 1364 Jackson Drive. So here we are today listening to these policies and local ordinances to ban people's rights. Well, what if I told you the 1994 assault weapon ban failed? That's when the Columbine shooting happened. And the FBI did a study and they found no difference between mass shootings decreasing. There was no difference between that. And then also, in Germany, they took the guns away from the people. And also, with a waiting period, they wanted to, in states like California, criminals will just get their guns via private sale or steal them. You're only harming the law-abiding citizen. And raising the age to 21, that was struck down by a court in California, saying that it was unconstitutional. So then you're telling me that it's okay for an 18-year-old to go out in war and kill, but then in reality, then here, they have to wait till they're 21. Why don't we raise the age to 21 for the draft? Why don't we raise the age to 21 for voting? That's all I got.
Thank you. Mark.
Good evening, Mayor Pack and Council. My name is Mark Spencer. I'm a lifelong Longmont resident. My address is 14431 Wheatland Drive in Boulder County, but I pastor Christ Church International here in Longmont since 1981, and our church is located at 527 Main Street. Others will have, and they speak tonight, and others will speak tonight about our rights and the truth about how When cities defund the police and restrict or take guns away from the general law-abiding population, how violent crime almost without exception escalates. I'd rather briefly take a few moments about my personal experience and years of ministry behind the Iron Curtain, that I've seen firsthand the tyranny of the socialist ideology and how it subjugates entire nations. And when the common people can no longer defend themselves from tyrannical regimes, they become mere serfs who are no longer able to chart a course for their own lives. This last Christmas morning, I was summoned from the middle of my Christmas celebration with my family to our building, where I was met with 4 police cars, where one of our front windows had been shot out. And through that shattered glass, the shooter had thrown a desecrated Bible and his dope pipe. Thankfully, our building wasn't full of families at that time. And while I have the utmost respect for our police force, the simple fact is this: if a crazed shooter enters my building when it is full of people, police response time will never be as fast as my veterans, my reservists, and my well-trained civilians who will act to preserve our lives and our safety. As a Christian pastor, I would be happy to explain why the hearts of people in our nation have become so hardened to the preciousness of life, but then I'd have to have a whole sermon. You can see me on Sunday morning if you want that. But we as a nation have removed God, His Son, and our commandments from public life. We are reaping what we've sown. I respectfully call upon this council to keep your hands off our Second Amendment rights. Thank you.
Michelle?
My name is Michelle Wooded. I live in Longmont on 1320 Red Mountain Drive. I am a strong supporter of gun reform. Watching the news reports of Sandy Hook had a profound impact on me. I didn't know them, but my heart hurt badly for these innocent first graders. I cried with their families. The trauma their bodies and minds endured was hard to hear, and I hoped I would never hear of something like that again. Of course, that has not been the case, as gun violence is happening again and again and again. Active shooter drills came next, and I experienced one volunteering in my daughter's second grade classroom. Hiding under the teacher's desk, trying to quiet the children, I vividly remember how scared and confused my daughter and other classmates looked. Now she is a teenager and accepts unemotionally that a shooting at her school will always be a possibility. My heart is heavy again with Uvalde and Buffalo mass shootings. The continued devastation from gun violence that is uniquely American feels hopeless. But there are clear and logical solutions. I am joining a majority of Americans in speaking out to convince elected officials such as yourselves to put common sense gun regulations in place. Both sides will present emotionally charged arguments. But as the leaders of our city, you have a duty to do what is best for the greater good. Don't hide behind false Second Amendment rights or political party affiliations. This is only a matter of public health and safety. The statistics are staggering and cannot be ignored. It is disgusting and unacceptable that guns are now the leading killer of American children, and that violence daily from guns is increasing yet again, whether it be homicide, suicide, or accidental. 110 per day. Tonight, I'm asking you all to pass local ordinances that, in conjunction with recent state laws, will help keep Longmont communities safer. Raise the minimum age to buy a long gun to 21. Implement a 10-day waiting period on gun sales. Prohibit open carry in sensitive public places. And please regulate assault weapons in our city. Research shows these measures help decrease gun violence. Care about people first. Reject the extreme ideologies and help change the reckless use of guns. It will take multiple measures and a reset of our culture, but we have to take steps to stop gun violence in our community and in our country. These senseless deaths are preventable. Please help. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucas and Tara Menzer and Mr. McQueen.
Hello, my name is Lucas Menza. I live at 2235 Parkview Drive. I am a 14-year-old. I live here in Longmont, and I am speaking on behalf of I am speaking on behalf of those who are having the core values of our country, our Constitution, violated unfairly. Putting in place resolutions and ordinances that violate the Constitution may look like laws, but they aren't. They are what is called color of law, simply a statement that is followed until it is challenged. The U.S. Code Title 18, Section 241, prohibits motioning any ruling that goes against the Constitution, with a penalty for violating this code going up to death. Similar codes include U.S. Code 242 and 42 U.S. Code 1983. Passing the regulations that would only be in direct violation of these codes, but in the Constitution itself. The Constitution is the set of laws that our country, that have been set in place and set in stone in our country. Removing that stone would be to change the country, and none of you in any way have the power to change our country. We've seen it happen once, where we've seen it happen once where our rights have been violated and infringed upon. Prohibition, and that prohibition of alcohol in the 50s, that was a complete disaster, going up in flames and emerging with organized crime and on raising the age for buying guns. I would say America would not exist without the bravery of young adults who have fought and died in our Revolutionary War. If the argument is that the prefrontal cortex in young adults is not fully developed until 26, and young adults are impulsive, perhaps voting should be restricted until young adults are 21. I've heard that mentioned a lot here. Should young adults not be allowed to join the military until 21? And on the topic of use, as a student myself, yes, gun violence is scary. The concept of a school shooter scares me a lot, but personally, I would feel a lot safer in schools if, instead of trying to take all of our guns away, you could put in place ways in which we can protect the students and staff of our schools with people who have been trained to protect children and trained to protect people, school resource officers. I would love those. We'll push back. The more you restrict a community, the more violence looks like a better option. This has been demonstrated time and time again throughout history. I'd like to thank Twin Peaks Charter Academy for teaching me all that I know about our country and the things that have happened in our history. People who use guns to keep others safe from bad people should not be punished for bad people's doings.
Thank you. Tara?
Good evening, council members. I am Tara Menza, 2235 Parkview Drive. I'm a mom of 6, a part-time substitute teacher, and I'm also a candidate for House District 11 here in Longmont. While I realize gun safety is at the forefront of everyone's minds lately, we need to be cognizant of the difference between the words safety and control. I've had a gun pulled on me while driving in my minivan with my 6-month-old son in the van. I gave the police every bit of information about the person who did that to me, but not one police officer followed up for me. I was terrified and completely disheartened by the lack of follow-up from law enforcement. That person who pulled a gun on a mom in a minivan was not a law-abiding citizen. He was mentally unstable. We need to remember that Colorado already has strict gun safety measures that have been passed at the state level. We have universal background checks that go above and beyond other states. We have mandatory storage laws. We already have magazine high-capacity restrictions, CCW certification, and application requirements and extreme risk protection orders. How will your cooling-off period help a woman who has had something happen to her, like rape or worse, and doesn't feel safe? Are you willing to accept the blame when she tried to protect herself but couldn't because of your cooling-off ordinance and something bad happened to her? How will you enforce banning ghost guns if you don't know if people have them? I've already had conversations like these with the Boulder City Council, and their answers never deviated from, I don't know. It is absolutely unacceptable if ordinances are going to be passed that take away constitutional rights for citizens that are unenforceable and are just feel-good measures. Does Longmont have the funds to pay for lawsuits that will inevitably happen if such measures are passed? Do the citizens know their tax dollars will be paying for such lawsuits? I certainly hope Longmont City Council feels like it doesn't need to enact such extreme measures that will have no true useful impact on gun violence, since criminals don't care about the laws anyways. If you want to see how well gun control ordinances work in a city, call the city council in Chicago and ask them how well it's working there. This is an opportunity for Longmont to take a different approach and lead the way for mental health care reform. Longmont needs to put expert heads together and address the mental health crisis, domestic violence crisis, and drug addiction crisis. I heard from one shelter here in Longmont that domestic violence is up 400%. Gun control doesn't address any of those issues, except ensure criminals continue their crime spree. Let's just call a spade a spade. This isn't about gun safety. This is about gun control. There is no buy-in on both sides for safety measures. This is a knee-jerk reaction to criminal behavior. This is freedom versus force, and you're trying to force law-abiding citizens out of their constitutional rights instead of addressing the real problem at the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ed McQueen. I live at 1527 Tulip Court. John Knowles wrote in his book, A Separate Peace, "The war is the ignorance of the human heart." I would suggest that what we have is not a gun problem. We have a human problem. And until we solve that, we'll have real issues. As we think about these various ideas that are put forth to control for gun safety, which needs to be taking care of those who have real issues, the human beings who are ignorant of the things that they're doing. Remember the law of unintended consequences. How many laws have been passed and then down the road, 6 months, a year, so forth, we realize the consequences that have come were totally unintended, and they are always detrimental. In a rush to do something in this situation, I think it falls in that category. I also have concern for the constitutional aspects of any kind of gun safety, and I always put that, I guess I'd put it in air quotes, because we're not talking about gun safety. Guns are always safe, but when they put in the hands of the wrong human, they're never safe, and that's the thing we're talking about. I too am a pastor. I'm a retired pastor, which is a unique place to be today. I wonder if Longmont is not considering something that the ancient Israel kingdom did before it became a kingdom. The people said to Samuel, "Give us a king." Why? So we can be like other nations. I'd like to paraphrase that. Give us new gun laws so we can be like other Boulder County communities.
Thank you. Joshua Spencer, Mike Morris, and Tim Herbert.
Joshua Spencer. I live at 520 Elliott Street. Good evening, Mayor. Yeah, all right, it moves a little bit, that's good. Otherwise I'll be crouching. All right, well, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. First off, I appreciate your being responsive and considerate in the pre-session. I especially appreciate that you didn't ram through any legislation in a Zoom meeting like other districts around here. I'll do my best to be somewhat responsive to the discussion that's already happened instead of just sticking to a generic statement. This is my first time to speak at a council meeting. But I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a business owner here in Longmont. This is where I was born and raised. I'm a father of 3 beautiful little children. I'm also an officer in the United States Marine Corps. I'm currently serving in the reserves, and I'm a veteran of the Afghan War. I would much rather be talking about sports or business or hanging out with my friends, but I do have a professional military perspective to bring. I'd like to start with some constructive recommendations. Can we please look at our school resource officers and what resources can be put towards them? Can we perhaps split their shifts so that they can be more alert? Can we keep them from working the same school every single day so that they don't become complacent? Can we give them preferential training opportunities and qualifications, perhaps even above SWAT team? As much as I love the police department here in Longmont, however, they cannot always get there on time every time. And it might be reasonable to ask a group of young servicemen or young servicewomen to mob an active shooter, perhaps at a small cost of life. After all, we are putting our lives on the line. But that's not reasonable to ask a mother in a grocery store to do. There's a principle in military affairs called proportionality. And proportionality means that the only proper response to stop a shooting, once it starts, is equal or greater force. Therefore, the proposed Everytown for Gun Safety / Giffords Group recommendations offend me, especially registration of weapons. They offend me because they want to dictate my tools. They offend me because they make me a sitting duck. They make my wife a sitting duck. And they strip my civilian friends who could protect my children when I'm not there from the ability to protect them. Lastly, how dare you consider making me a felon at the stroke of a pen? That's not reasonable. This isn't what we want. We want drugs off the streets. We want our youth to be connected, not isolated. And we want you to pledge to never lock our community down, again, like in 2020, the fruits of which were isolation, abuse, and paranoia. I would love to talk with any of you at a different setting, and I'm open to that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Whoa. Mike Morris, 1240 Kim Pratt Boulevard. I own Warriors Revolution, which is a gun store here in Longmont. First of all, I want to say thank you to y'all. I came in expecting to see this pre-meeting happening a whole different way. And I heard some very insightful questions asked there. I wasn't expecting it. I came here expecting to watch these speeches and just be completely floored and upset, but I wasn't. I think one of the biggest issues that we have when we start talking about gun control or gun safety is a problem with knowledge across both sides, right? There's over 20,000 gun laws in this nation. And a lot of what I've heard talked about is already covered under certain laws. I know somebody said, wouldn't it be nice if everybody walked out of a store with a lock or a way to lock up their gun? That's the law. No gun can leave a gun store without a lock. It's the law. It already exists. We talk a lot about ghost guns. Today I sat in a 3-hour training with the ATF mandated for all FFL dealers. August 24th, the new federal regulations on ghost guns go into effect. It's already there. The ATF has already put it together. There's new regulations for all FFL owners. There's new serializing laws. I urge you to look into those, please. There's training going on for all FFLs across the entire U.S. right now. The law goes into effect August 24th. The one thing that I did, I can sit up here, we can talk about our rights, we can talk about the Second Amendment, but what I'd rather focus on right now is let's talk about this, the 10-day waiting period. And I heard somebody bring it up in the meeting, and I thought it was very insightful. The way we sit today, a 10-day waiting period would do nothing but affect businesses in Longmont. A person wanting to procure a firearm needn't just go across the street. Just go down the road. They can get one, after passing a background check. It puts us at a business disadvantage there. There's also other things to consider too, is the paperwork challenge, the financial challenge for having to store all of these firearms for 10 days. Should we still be selling them? Right now, anything that's sold would have to be separated from things that haven't been sold. There's additional paperwork challenges. There's a safe storage challenge. Where are we going to put all these guns for 10 days while we wait for people to come back? I believe my livelihood would definitely be on the line, as well as many other business owners, should a 10-day period go into effect. I didn't hear a lot of discussion about bans, and I'm glad to hear that, because bans don't really work, especially when you can go to any other county and procure whatever you want. People, if you've already... Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim Hebert, 1441 Hilltop. Longmont resident for 46 years now, and big proponent of gun safety education and training. Why aren't we ever talking about that stuff? Why aren't we educating kids on the safety when they find a gun? You know, we've heard some stats mentioned about accidental deaths with children. Why aren't we addressing this stuff? Why aren't we talking about safety? Guns are here. They're out. We need to talk about that kind of stuff. You know, get that in our schools. For the kids whose parents don't have guns, when they come across one somewhere else, they need to look at that stuff. Protect our kids, right? It breaks all of our hearts when criminals murder people. I don't think there's a person in this room that didn't have their heart broken when we saw the recent shootings. Nobody's for that. Nobody wants that. However, we never address the root cause. We go right into politicizing, trying to ban, trying to restrict law-abiding citizens' rights. Rights that were endowed to us by our Creator, enshrined in the Constitution, not given to us by government, therefore cannot be taken by government. I'm a proud concealed carrier. I carry not because it's fun, not because it gives me a kind of power. In fact, it's very uncomfortable. It's heavy, it hurts, it leaves bruises. I do it to protect my family, myself, and my community, should the need arise, as a last-ditch effort. And you know the sayings, when seconds matter, law enforcement's only minutes away. Just 7 months ago, I watched all the town hall meetings. I watched the debates that you guys had when you were running for council. And I watched every single one of you say you would not implement any new laws after Polis signed that preemption law, reversing the preemption law. Remember that. We are watching. We see what you're doing. I watched every one of you say it, even you, Miss Martin. You said it's not enforceable. Another thing on the ghost guns, or what everybody calls ghost guns, making your own firearms is not illegal. It's never been illegal and will never be illegal. So I don't know how you think that you can manage ghost guns or anything like that. You don't even know where they are. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Trippensail, Kathy Hagan, and Carol Kellicott.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Mark Trippensail. I live at 2103 Wright Court near the Kmart that my dad opened here, which shows you how long I've been here. So,
wow.
When Shakey's was still here. So I hear, I'm echoing a lot of other people that have been speaking. I'm hearing a lot of laws that are targeted right at the law-abiding citizen and nothing that is addressing anything to do with the criminal. And these laws will achieve nothing, but it will excite and galvanize the people that voted for you, and that will do plenty for them. But it's going to do nothing for the people that are already abiding by the law. And, you know, we knew Boulder would buckle to a lot of this stuff, and so you knew the other surrounding towns would do that. What you're doing now is, you know, and with all due respect, you're caving to pressure from these other cities because you have to do something, right? But you're addressing it the wrong way. This country has thrown plenty of money at every other little problem and special interest group and trying to wipe away problems these last 2 years. We can see where that's gotten us now. And why don't you throw money at safety training? And, you know, and a lot of people don't like to hear it, but the only way to address this is the schools are going to have to be armed. It doesn't mean that the teachers have to carry. Those who choose to and want to be trained can, but nothing is going to stop until the schools are armed by some sort of federally national measure that requires every school to be armed and to have an officer, and someone said the action doors that will slam shut, and I think that's a great idea as well. But let's talk about all the guns that were present that made September 11th happen. Let's talk about all the guns that were present to make the Oklahoma City bombing happen. Criminals will find a way, no matter what you try to put up, before them. And you can easily see a movie on Netflix or anywhere else, where only the police and only the government had guns. It's called Schindler's List. Sorry, I can't pronounce it, but you can easily go and see that, and that's where these kind of things go. And I'm a proud concealed carrier, as well as my friend back here. And yes, it is uncomfortable. And since all these recent shootings, yes, I do have to walk in almost everywhere I go that's legal with carrying my sidearm. Why? Not because it makes me feel powerful, and it's not for all the reasons that I can think of, but it's all for all the reasons I can't think of. And that's the last measure for us law-abiding citizens. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Hagan, 1870 Houck Street in neighboring Erie. The experiment is over. The theory that more guns make us safer and that Americans can self-regulate when it comes to guns has failed disastrously. Gun violence is an epidemic in this country. Not only does gun violence lead to deaths, it also leads to a lot of trauma. A lot of trauma. Our children have to do lockdown drills, hide under desks in the dark, and stay quiet in case a gunman is hunting them. We have police presence in our grocery stores. We hear about weekly mass shootings, unintentional shootings of minors, and gun suicides. I am angry at the inaction of our federal government because inaction is deadly. We are swimming in the consequences of inaction. Our federal government is hopefully making some progress on gun laws to keep us safer, but it's not enough. I'm so proud of our local governments for putting these ordinances up for a vote and hopefully enacting them. The data is consistent that with stronger gun laws, communities are safer, regardless of what you've heard tonight. Mississippi, Idaho, Montana, Arkansas, and South Dakota have the weakest gun laws in the country. Guess what? They have the highest gun fatalities in the country. The gun lobby will talk about how gun violence is high in Chicago, and we've heard that a lot tonight, and they have strict gun laws. So this shows that gun laws don't work. What they don't tell you is that the majority of guns in Chicago are trafficked from other states that have weaker laws. Chicago doesn't even make it in the top 25 most deadly cities. Jackson, Mississippi is number 1. Unfortunately, guns in our cities can come in from other cities, so we need to pressure other cities, counties, and the state to enact these laws as well. I do want to point out that the gentleman who owns the gun shop actually pointed out how gun laws work. For the woman with mental health issues, we actually have a red flag law or ERPO law in Colorado that allows for the family to temporarily take away the guns if that person is a danger to themselves or others. So thank you for taking the lead and being brave on this issue. Enough is enough. We have to stand up. Please, please vote yes on these ordinances and take a big step in making our communities safer. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Calicott. I live in neighboring Louisville, but I shop, dine, and visit friends often here in Longmont. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. We are 26 times more likely to die. Yes.
Excuse me. Would you give us your address, please?
I am not comfortable doing that. My name has been in the paper a few times, and I have had trolls, and I'm really not. I can give it to you privately if I need to.
That would be great.
I'm not comfortable having that said out loud.
Thank you.
Okay. We are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide because we live in the United States. We have 20 times the civilian-owned guns in this country compared to other countries. This is not a coincidence. Violence is the #1 killer of children in this country. And Colorado has the 22nd highest gun mortality rate in this country. This is a travesty, and nowhere are we immune when we are being told by the gun industry that in order to be safe from gun violence, we must have more guns everywhere. So gun sales rise and gun violence worsens. The truth is that most gun owners are reasonable and responsible. And those who are reasonable and responsible will also support these ordinances, as they are common sense laws backed by research that will help to make us safe. But then there are those who claim, who want the guns and the gun industry to remain the most unregulated industry our country has. They claim that this is freedom. This is not freedom, it's anarchy, and it's killing us. I feel anxious every time I go to church, a movie, shopping, sending my kids to school, or speaking out about this issue. Because guns in public spaces make us all less safe and less free. We have examples from around the world and in states with strong gun safety laws that common sense gun laws work. It's unconscionable that our federal government continues to do nothing to address our rampant gun violence issues. In Colorado, our legislators have made progress. In lifting preemption, they have placed upon cities both the burden, and we do see that this is a burden, but also the opportunity of addressing our gun violence epidemic. I thank you all for being brave enough to say enough, brave enough to take up these ordinances. I ask that you move forward with all of the proposed ordinances. I ask for a yes vote on all of them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol. Damaris, I can't pronounce your last name. Melanie Saki and Christina Farquhar, I guess.
Hi, I'm Damaris. I live in 4102 Somerset Court. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I have been a resident in the Longmont area for 27 years. And during that time, I've seen our city grow a lot and change, but a constant has been the strong feeling of community, backed by actions of our city council over the years, and the various organizations that support those in our community who need a helping hand. I've gotten nothing but love from Longmont, and I think it's a fantastic community. Today, I'm here in support of action to take a big step forward in making our city safer. 850 people die by guns each year in Colorado. We must do all we can to reduce this number. We must do all we can to shield our children from the trauma of gun violence. It doesn't have to be that way. We are the only advanced country with this problem. As someone who lost a family member to gun suicide, I'm committed to do my part towards a safer future. As a result of SB 256, as you know, local governments are now empowered to choose to prohibit the purchase of assault weapons and attachments that make firearms deadlier. You can institute a waiting period and raise the minimum age to purchase firearms in our city to 21, which studies show would decrease suicides as well as other deaths by gun violence. You can prohibit the open carry of firearms, which is too frequently used to intimidate and makes it difficult for police to distinguish, quote, the good guys from the bad. You can also choose to disallow guns in theaters, hospitals, and other sensitive locations. It's been 23 years since Columbine. Uvalde was a terrible reminder that the horrible carnage continues. Let's seize the moment and take action. I encourage you to follow our sister communities in Boulder, Louisville, Lafayette, and Superior, who have either already approved or are taking steps to pass increased gun safety measures. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie.
Hi, my name is Melanie Soki. I live at 1061 Champion Circle in Ward 2. I have been a member of Moms Demand Action since its beginning, right after Sandy Hook, and I moved here to Colorado in 2018. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I would like to add that as an older person, I come to this with a slightly different perspective. I grew up and went to school in the 50s and 60s. Never ever did I know of a school shooting. Never ever did I have to do a lockdown drill. As the abundance of guns has grown in our country, as the gun industry has figured out new ways to arm and equip people, new ways to intimidate people and make them think that they're not safe anymore if they don't own their own personal firearm, the level of gun violence in our country has only grown. I have now experienced, because of the Silver Creek High School incident, a lockdown for my own grandson. I would have moved heaven and earth for that not to have happened to him. I will say I have personally experienced a lockdown when I lived in Indiana. I was a tutor at an elementary school in my neighborhood, and they called a drill one day when I was there. I was tutoring in a second grade class, and I said to the teacher, "What do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do." And she said, she pulled down the shades. All the kids had their places to go under the tables and lie flat on the floor. Now, her place would have been under the knee hole on the desk, but yours truly, I probably would have been gone if it had been a real shooter. There was no place for me to hide. I would like to just reiterate that I'm fully in support of working with our other Boulder County communities to institute some sort of gun reform that could keep us safer. And I really don't understand how, limiting assault type or automatic weapons, or limiting magazines to 10 rounds or fewer, or raising the age of firearm possessions to 21, or, I did hear somebody talk about how the 10-day waiting period would impact their gun business, so, okay, I'm on board with how that might affect you. But some of these other provisions, I don't see how that's going to impinge on anybody's Second Amendment rights. Firearms are now the leading cause of death for children in this country, more than auto accidents, more than childhood cancer, more than childhood diseases. They're the leading instrument for suicide. There have been 250 mass shootings in this country already this year. That's as defined as 4 or more people being shot at once. There were 693 last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Or Melanie. Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
Now it's Christina.
My name is Christina Farquhar. I live at 1042 Kane Drive in Longmont. Mayor and City Council members, thank you for your time. As a member of this community, I stand before you against gun control measures. Gun safety and gun control are not synonymous. The weight of gun safety lies with the gun owner. The government should not infringe on the rights of gun owners with gun control measures. I am thankful for law-abiding citizens in my community who are gun owners and concealed carriers. I reiterate, the constitutional rights of citizens in our community should absolutely not be infringed. If we truly care about protecting our children, we need to address issues in our community that are affecting them right now. As a teacher, I see daily the issues that are impacting my students. When we locked down in 2020, many children were suddenly stuck with abusers 24/7, some for more than a year. As mandatory reporters, teachers are on the front lines of advocating for our students. When we went online, students that would normally be watched carefully in school for well-being were suddenly off the map, and teachers had no way to contact them and no recourse for students who did not log in other than to exempt them. Many children experienced trauma in their homes daily, and we can see the effects of this trauma emerging. This is a much more pressing and concerning issue for my students. Children for decades have absorbed the message that babies in the womb, and by extension children, do not matter if they are inconvenient to us. We strip them of their value, we strip them of their identity, and then we wonder why they have emotional and mental health issues. Mental health is a crisis in this country. I heard someone in the pre-session say that she is scared that Longmont could possibly be the scene of the next tragedy. I put to you that tragedies are happening here every day that we are not addressing. If we truly care about protecting our kids, let's address the opioid crisis, the substance abuse crisis, the mental health crisis, and make sure that Child Protective Services are adequately funded to address situations of abuse and neglect. We should not infringe on the rights of citizens and fool ourselves into thinking we are protecting our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stan Gelb, Ingrid Moore, and Ed Dillow. Ed Dillon, I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of my organization, the Longmont Area Democrats.
Stan.
Oh, and my name is Stan Gelb, 2226 Sherman Street.
Thank you.
I'm speaking on behalf of my organization, the Longmont Area Democrats, who note that many cities in Boulder County are now enacting meaningful gun violence prevention measures. This includes Louisville, Boulder, Lafayette, and Superior. And these measures represent common sense responses to the mass shootings that are now plaguing America, such as the mass shooting at our Boulder King Soopers. And whereas these gun violence prevention measures have the potential to save many lives while not infringing on anyone's rights. And the Colorado legislature last year passed SB 256, which grants local control of firearms to Colorado cities and counties. Therefore, the Longmont Area Democrats call upon the Longmont City Council to promptly enact very similar ordinances to the ones that are right now being passed by our sister cities of Boulder County. For maximum ease, the that's the Longmont Area Democrats, urges the Longmont City Council to borrow heavily from the already completed gun violence prevention work of Louisville. The Louisville ordinances are one, a ban on the sale or possession of all military assault weapons like the AR-15, along with a ban on any firearm magazine of more than 10 rounds, and a ban on all rapid fire trigger activators. That's Louisville Ordinance number 1831. And also on 1831, establishing a minimum age of 21 for all firearm purchases. And number 3, a ban on concealed carry in all sensitive public places. That's ordinance number 1832. And then number 4, a ban on open carry in all public places. That's Louisville ordinance number 1833. And number 5, requirement that all firearm dealers prominently post detailed warning signs concerning the many specific hazards that gun possession can pose. That's Louisville number 1834. Number 6, requiring a 10-day waiting period prior to all firearm sales. That's 1835. Number 7, a ban on all guns without serial numbers and a ban on possession of gun components that are designed to be used in assembling unserialized guns. That's 1836. And finally, appropriate penalties and consequences consistent with state law for violations of any of those ordinances. The Longmont Area Democrats ask the Longmont City Council to promptly consider and enact these life-saving ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Ingrid.
Hello, Mayor Peck and Council. I don't have prepared, you'll be relieved to know, I don't have prepared statements. I have a few random thoughts, and I'm just going to repeat what he said. By the way, my name's Ingrid Moore. I live at 925 Little Leaf Court here in Longmont. I want to just encourage you to move forward with this. I think you're on the right track, and I think we do need to do something. I think you'll have, regardless of what you think, I think you'll have the support of the majority of the citizens. And what you're considering sounds reasonable. As far as inconveniencing law-abiding gun owners, you know, I have to go through a lot of paperwork to rent a shelter at one of our parks. I still have access to the park. I just have to do the paperwork. So I don't see why that's such a huge burden for people to have to do some common sense regulations. One thing that the Colorado law does not have is that gun dealers do not have to be licensed. And I would like to suggest that maybe Longmont gun dealers, if they are not licensed, should be. And I think a lot of things suggested tonight are probably the purview of the county or the FBI or DHS or somebody, the state, and not you. So we realize that the city has a limited authority here. And so I'm just wanting to encourage you to do what is within your limitations and be brave and just do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Ed?
Thank you. My name is Ed Dillon, 528 Ryder Ridge Drive, here in Longmont. I'd like to thank the council and Mayor Peck for tonight's public forum. As you hear comments and suggestions from both sides, it is important to take a step back and determine what problem you are actually being asked to address. Since Columbine shook our state and the nation in 1999, there have been 21 mass shootings with 10+ people killed, totaling 408 victims. In each and every case, the weapon of choice was a firearm. While it is possible to use other instruments for mass death, such as rental trucks, arson, airplanes, and bombings, the fact remains the volume of incidents and the tally of deaths are due to firearms. We need to acknowledge these truths as a national crisis and have the bravery to develop solutions without fear of their unpopularity. Americans have many liberties, and among them should be the right to attend a country music concert or church service, enjoy time with friends at a nightclub or movie theater, do our shopping, and most importantly, send our children to school without fear of becoming tomorrow's headline. While no one expects a magic wand to wave and eliminate all threats, there are reasonable steps that can be taken to limit the access to firearms for those who are mentally unstable or emotionally charged, while still allowing gun ownership for those that are truly responsible. Among these are background checks, waiting periods, age restrictions, enforcement of red flag laws, limits on the type of weapons available for purchase, and mandatory training. It is both unfortunate and sad that 19 young kids and 2 teachers had to die to again bring this conversation to the forefront. We do have a national problem. Let's stop with the excuses, accept it, own it, and solve it. As the elected leaders of our community, you have the opportunity to enact sensible regulations to protect the citizens of Longmont and set a standard for other Colorado municipalities to follow. Your upcoming actions or inactions will have an impact that will last far beyond your term-limited time on the council and in the mayor's office. I ask each of you to have the courage to lead and to do what is right for this wonderful city we call home. Appreciate it and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you, sir. It looks like Lou Buchhucker? Lee, I'm sorry. Steve Kukic? I'm not very good at pronouncing some of these names. I apologize. No one ever has been. And Matthew Todd. Dupes. I think it's getting late.
This time of year, my name is Leo Buhaker. I live at 833 Baker Street in Longmont. This time of year, after my California neighbors, electricians at RES, random thumbs up, tell me how nice 833 Baker looks, the city of Longmont sends defamatory letters stating how poorly me and my property look. All of you in this semicircle and the city employees on each side of me are what sociologists have described as being pre-Proud Boys. According to the sociologists, you, as pre-Proud Boys, constantly defame Leo, his friends, and their properties. Each of you is allowing the city developers, Sure Steel Graphics, Sickgate, etc., to covet property, wives, girlfriends, and pets. That makes you heathens. I know the city's legal department and the planning commissions have considered that Leo, who resides in historic east side at 833 Baker 01, may not yet be tolerant enough to endure another blankety misaccusation. Let's just bait him, his friends, and property until he X roads. This is a form of psychological entrapment that I believe the second highest courts could review. It's no longer hosing and dogs, it's more subtle, gentler, and kinder methods of control and oppression. Let's don't use our Big 12 educations to upset the communities. Manic episodes are generally not encouraged unless you want to covet even more, not only property and wives, but also Leo, in person, the most valuable of all. Let it be known to the people in this area, the City Planning and Development Commissions, controlled by computer boxes, that as of today, I will not accept less than $750,000 for my greater than 1 acre ranch at 833 Baker. Continued attempts by the City of Longmont to defame, harass me, visitors, girlfriends, children will be met inch by inch, and Proud Boys with unproud boys. Not unlike Rickety Rack burned out Tweaky Trump, municipal, county court, district, circuit court, Colorado Supreme Court, federal appeals, tax courts, SCROTUS, and world court, I'll make sure that the City of Longmont will spend at least $100 million to try to imminently condemn me, just so the Proud Boys can live out their Proud Boy dreams, and then covet us, the unproud boys, and our families. I'll make certain to defame whatever reputations you guys have left until all of you are hockey, poker, Reed. You will fail in your attempt to covet, yet you are not also fake believers. Let me put it this way. To all the kids in TV land, if you're under 13, I want you to look at the TV screen, and what you really see is a nice assortment of pre-proud boys. You are unfocusing the critical issues like gun control, drought, fire prevention, budget, and the number of sex offenders who you allow the local courts to bed near our homes.
Thank you.
Teach the keto diet to reduce your costs.
Steve Kukik.
Hi, I'm Steve Kukik at 1144 East 4th Avenue in Longmont. Been very happy to be living in Longmont for 22 years, and we'll be living here hopefully for another 22 years. We'll see, with this hair. I'm not sure. I'm going to read this because it's important to me that I get this correctly. I'm writing this statement, looking at our 7-year-old grandson, who is on his way to 2nd grade this fall. Will he make it to 3rd grade? I'm so concerned that he won't, like the kids at Sandy Hook and Robb elementary schools. We must care more about our kids than guns. In the Supreme Court's Heller decision, Justice Scalia said the following: like most rights, the Second Amendment right is not unlimited. It is the right to keep and carry it is not the right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever in any manner whatsoever for whatever purpose. Miller's holding that the sorts of weapons protected are those in common use at the time finds support in the historical tradition of prohibiting the carrying of dangerous and unusual weapons. Justice Scalia recognized that the government has the responsibility to regulate who can get what guns under our Second Amendment. Many responsible gun owners agree. What is the vaccine for the pandemic of gun violence in our country? This hyper-complex disaster demands a hyper-complex solution. In my view, it demands attention on at least 4 issues simultaneously. It can't be gun control and not mental health. It can't be mental health and not caring about the violence in our community. So mental health, violence in our society, the moral issue of treating others as you would like to be treated, and common sense gun control, all 4 of them have to be dealt with simultaneously. In 2018, I was blessed to facilitate a city-endorsed set of conversations focused on reducing gun violence. Our report was entitled Safety and Respect. The City Council passed a resolution calling on our governor, state legislature, and the federal government to take action. Our state has acted, including passing a law that allows counties and cities to pass ordinances that are stricter than state laws related to gun control. Boulder, Lafayette, Superior, and Louisville have all responded to this opportunity to protect its citizens, and I support the City Council's willingness to discuss an ordinance or ordinances that are related to reducing gun violence. The Longmont City Council must take this opportunity to step up and consider whether anyone, especially under 21, should ever have an AR-15? Should there be large capacity magazines? Should we be allowed to have rapid fire trigger activators or ghost weapons? We should be working together with the county commissioners to be able to make this work. Again, I'm looking at my bright and handsome grandson
you,
and hope
sir.
he makes it through the second grade.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve. Matthew Toops.
Hi, my name's Matthew Toops. I live at 804 Summerhawk Drive. I'm moving into an apartment soon, and I'm thinking about buying a shotgun myself for home defense. If you increase the age of 21 to, well, I mean, age to buy a gun to 21, sorry for stuttering my words, then all that's going to do is going to put me, my girlfriend, and anyone else who just so happens to be in my apartment in danger if it happens to get robbed or something like that. If you put a 10-day hold on guns in Longmont, all you're going to do is affect businesses in Longmont. If I want to evade that, all I have to do is go to Thornton or something to buy a gun. If you end up restricting these, it's only going to cause, like, something bad. Gun control, it doesn't seem like the way to go. From every point of view that I've seen, from cities that have more gun control versus less, there's always more violence in the places that have more control. If you restrict them, they're just going to get them from a black market. I don't know how you're going to control gun violence, like ghost guns, that's what they were called, sorry about that. I don't know how you're going to control those either. Are you going to, like, look into people's homes? Like, how are you going to find out they even have them or if they're making them? That's all I really have to say. I can't really think of much. Sorry I've stuttered so much up here.
You're fine.
I do hope you take that into consideration, though. All this is going to do is damage people.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Jeff Hudson, Brian Johnston, and Javier Valdez. Hello.
Mayor Peck, council members, my name is Jeff Hudson. I live at 1454 Box Prairie Circle, Loveland, Colorado. I'd like to take a moment to step away from the gun debate and bring up the Family Act that you guys have to make a decision on for city employees. Under that, I understand that there are two choices for you to choose, whether you opt in the employees or you opt out for the employees. When you choose, if you choose to opt in, you make a choice for every employee, for their family, whether or not they get a choice. You choose to force them to be part of that. If you make a choice to opt out, you're giving the choice to the employee. The choice for them to choose whether it's best for them and their family to opt in through the state or to opt in or to opt out. I ask that you council members consider that choice. Is that a choice that you should be making for people that you don't know, for family members you don't know? Or is that a decision that you should allow the employee to make for themselves? I ask you, do not take away my right to choose.
Thank you very much. Brian Johnston.
Hello, I'm Brian Johnston of 926 Kaufman. Wish I could have spoke early and got on the list early, saved us a lot of time. I looked at the 4 policies that were proposed, that what we were actually coming here to talk about. Ban open carry, 10-day waiting period, minimum age 21, and ghost guns. So all of this discussion about taking away legal owners' guns that I've heard for 2 hours, or taking away concealed carry, none of that is being proposed. No one's doing anything that would take away any legal gun owner's rights. That is not what was proposed. So let's just clarify that. Number 2, yeah, let's talk about this Chicago thing. Whoever spoke earlier, you're absolutely right. Jackson, Mississippi has the highest murder rate, followed by, this all ahead of Chicago. Memphis, Jackson, Mississippi, St. Louis, and New Orleans. All gun-friendly states. Louisiana, Tennessee. A couple of those cities had double the murder rate of Chicago. So if we could do some research and cite facts, this is the FBI statistics that just came out, instead of just unsubstantiated claims, that would save us a bunch of time too. Number 3, the gentleman who said that 90% of gun murders were committed by African Americans, woo! Let's look at the actual facts according to the FBI. But that's an insane thing to even suggest. It just shows where they're getting their information from. Who is disseminating that type of racist information to those people? And that just shows where their information is coming from. Here's the statistics from the FBI. Among homicide victims in the U.S., 54% were African American, 42% were white. They do not keep statistics on number of murders committed by race. You can look at convictions, you can look at victims, but even what he cited, the stats he cited, those aren't even compiled and collected by the FBI. And it makes total sense why. Third, I heard the argument, well, it won't stop them all. Well, that won't stop all mass shooters. Name me one law in the history of mankind that has been 100% effective. Name one. Murder laws don't stop all murders. Should we not ban murder? There's no logic to that argument. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Yeah, we know. I understand that a gun is not a cognitive being. That's why we want background checks on people. That's why we want 10-day waiting periods on people. That's why, same arguments, same misrepresentations of what you're trying to do, and the same false arguments about Chicago and guns don't kill people. And Hitler. No, the Nazis did not take everyone's guns. The reality, if you do a little research, the Weimars, who preceded the Nazi regime, passed strict gun laws in 1919 to comply with the Treaty of Versailles.
Brian.
Once the Nazis moved in, they relaxed gun laws.
Brian.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your passion. Javier? Doesn't look like Javier is here. Peter Modafferi? Samantha Spencer? And of course, Strider. Are you Peter?
I am.
Go ahead and.
My name is Peter Montefiore. I reside at 221 Sherman Street. And I heard a lot of things that I was going to say, and I'm not going to be redundant and say the same thing that a lot of people have said and has already been mentioned here tonight. But I am a gun owner, I am an NRA member, and I am a member of the USCCA, which is United States Concealed Carry Association. I train monthly. I go to the firing range. I'm a very responsible gun owner. Was a Vietnam vet. I was trained in the military on using weapons. And I think that the weapons are getting a bad rap here. I think that it's more of the evil of some of the owners, of some of the purchasers who are getting the guns and doing the school shootings, the King Super shootings. That's all because of evil. I mean, we got to recognize evil, and that's why I choose to carry a concealed weapon. That's why I carry a gun, is because I know that evil can be present anywhere, and I want to be able to defend myself against it. I mean, if I were in a public venue and I saw evil show its face, I'm a trained gun owner, I would be able to save the life of myself, and I would save you and any of your loved ones that were there with me. So I just want to state that, and just like Ronald Reagan said, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Samantha Spencer. Strider. And then Mark Lithman. So, Strider, in case you're it.
Sorry, I don't walk so well lately. Yeah, it's interesting. The gun people who were teaching us their side pretty much all left. There are some valid.
Strider, your microphone went off. There you
All
go.
right. Many things. 9 years ago this week, Sunday, 59 years ago, Medgar Evers was killed. A bullet from a high-powered rifle. Henry II said, won't someone save me from this meddlesome priest? That's called stochastic terrorism, where public figures and people in the media put out an edict that anyone who wants to, because I'm giving you directions, go out and kill someone for me. Dylan Roof went in and killed 9 people in Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston because he felt that he should start a race war in this country. That is exactly what the game is going. They banned machine guns in 1934 in this country. Now they sell them legally to 17-year-old, 18-year-old children. Let's kill as many people as possible, and you learn how to do it on the internet. You can kill 6 people per second with an AR-15. That's basically the game that is going on. I've told you for the last 6 months, 3-minute histories. The ultra-rich in this country decided to get rid of democracy. How do we do this? Part of the thing is, first, there's the Ku Klux Klan, there's wiping out voting rights. We thought we won the right to vote in 1965. Now they're taking it away from us again. When they exported industrial capital, we lost 300,000 jobs in 2 industries in Chicago in the 1970s. What do you do with the kids of people whose parents had good jobs? Well, you bring in cocaine and you bring in guns and you have them create gang wars, and then you bring in more guns because you create the fear and the fire so that more people buy more guns. That's the NRA game. They took over the Republican Party some years ago, and now you have stochastic terrorism going down. And the same people, the governor of Texas, said, oh, it's mental health. Well, he stole $211 million from their mental health budget to give it to border security. That's basically what's going on. Get rid of public education, get rid of mental health, get rid of Medicare. That's the game.
Thank you, Strider.
Create fear, and then you have more guns.
Thank you. Well, that is it for public to be invited to be heard. Thank everyone who showed up. Well, is Mark? I thought he wasn't here. So thank you. This has been very educational, and thank you for your respect for each other. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to take a 5-minute break, maybe 10. coming back. We are now at the consent agenda. And Don, would you mind reading the consent agenda into the record?
Absolutely, Mayor. Item 9A is ordinance 2022-21, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the McIntosh Lake annexation, generally located north of Lakeshore Drive, south of State Highway 66, west of Harvard Street, and zoning the property NPF. Public hearing and second reading on June 28, 2022. 9B is ordinance 2022-22, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the consent to Vance Brand Municipal Airport leasing assignment for hangar parcel H25 and H25 PHP to Stephen Croft, tenant. Public hearing and second reading on June 28, 2022. 9C is ordinance 2022-23, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the consent to Vance Brand Municipal Airport lease assignment for hangar parcel H28E to Mark Reagan, tenant. Public hearing and second reading on June 28, 2022. 9D is ordinance 2022-24, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the consent to Vance Brand Municipal Airport lease assignment for hangar parcel H73 to Megan A. McIntosh, revocable trust. Public hearing and second reading and public hearing on June 28, 2022. 9E is resolution 2022-100, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving a voluntary alternative agreement for Cinnamon Park Apartments as satisfaction of the city's inclusionary housing requirements. 9F is Resolution 2022-101, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving multiple intergovernmental agreements between the City South Platte Renew, University of Virginia, and the Alliance for Sustainable Energy for participation in advancing renewable energy production technology in conjunction with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. 9G is Resolution 2022-102, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Boulder County for the provision of county reimbursable childcare at the Longmont Summer Day Camp. And 9H is Resolution 2022-103, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and several governments in the Boulder County region to establish a Boulder County Region Opioid Council.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
I move the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Waters. Let's vote. So the consent agenda passes unanimously with Councilor Yarbrough absent. And we go down to ordinances on the second reading and public hearings on any matter. A 2022-20-20 is a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the vacation of 4 utility and storm drainage easements within the exterior boundaries of Lot 2 of Longs Peak Industrial Park, Sunset Diagonal Business Park Minor Subdivision B, generally located at 1820 Industrial Circle. Is there a staff report on this?
No presentation, but we can answer questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, can we have a motion to pass ordinance?
I'll move approval of ordinance 2022-1.
Thank you. So that's been moved by Councilor Waters, seconded by Councilor Hidalgo Ferry. Let's vote. So that passes unanimously with Councilor Yarbrough absent. We have no items that have been removed from the consent agenda, so general business, we have consideration of potential charter changes regarding election vacancies. And Assistant Manager Sandy Cedar.
Hello, Mayor Peck, members of council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. You may remember when we last left off in talking about charter changes, you had agreed that you'd like to send several changes to the ballot, including things around electronic signatures and pension boards. But the one thing you asked for us to bring back a little more information on was regarding election vacancies. So what you moved and asked us to bring back was some wording that might create a situation where if somebody were to basically give up their council spot as they wanted to run for another council spot, that both of those could be ran concurrently in the same election, the vacancy vacated by the council member as well as the new spot that they were running for. So with that, Tim Hull, who's here tonight also with me, put together some different language based on what other cities are doing. So you saw that full chart last time we talked about that with respect to what other cities are doing, and there are a couple that do something like this. So what we've given you tonight in your council communication is a couple of different options. So you asked for a voluntary kind of option if somebody wanted to voluntarily resign their spot to be able to run for another spot, and then an option that is mandatory resignation. It's my understanding that most of the cities require a mandatory resignation if you're going to run for another spot, but we wanted to give you the choice since that was the direction. So we have three options here for you, and of course can continue to do work additionally after this conversation, but in trying to pull together the ballot wording for your consideration. Option one, which is a voluntary resignation, is basically that. When you decide, let's say that you're a council member and you'd like to run for, if you're a ward council member, you'd like to run for at-large, you could, as an option, voluntarily resign your position so that we run both positions together at the same time. If we decided to do it as a mandatory resignation, it would be the same process, except that you would be required to resign if you're going to run for another office on the same board. And then option three really kind of lays it out as a qualification for council members. So if you're going to qualify as a council member in the new role, then you would have to vacate your role in your previous role on that board. And so Tim, feel free to jump in and let me know if I've said any of that wrong. But those are the options that we brought up. We have some wording in your council communication on what that code might sound like, might look like, and the discussion is yours.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Waters. Whoops, Martin. That's right, you're
Yeah.
8, she's 7.
Yeah, so I may have a reading comprehension problem here, but am I correct in thinking that option 2 and option 3 do exactly the same thing, just using different words? And if not, what's the difference?
It's more of a structural difference between those two. Option 2 is in the vacancy section, so it's not clear that.
Oh, you know what? Hey, his mic is really not on. Hang on. And, it's like broken, not on.
Not turn his mic on, yeah.
They are nearly identical. It's more of a structural.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
Yeah, sorry. They are nearly identical. It's more of a structural difference between the two. Both of them are mandatory. Option 2 is in vacancy, so it's more clear that it's part of the vacancy procedure. Option 3 is putting it into the qualifications. Most of the other jurisdictions do more of a qualifications mandatory procedure. So it's more of a preference on how you'd like those, but they are nearly identical.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Councilor Waters.
Number 8. Thank you, Mayor Peck. So my interest in this from the beginning, having gone through this, was that as a sitting council member, I would like to have had the option to resign my seat effective election day. So the city could run a special election concurrent with the general election. But I wouldn't want to vacate the seat until election day. I would announce that intent 90 days early, so the city had time to run the election, but the people I represent in my ward would have a representative on the council. Is that, and I wasn't certain that that's what I read in option number 1.
Yes, that is how it's listed in all three options. And what we decided to do was rather than align it with sort of the old, we had talked about changing the organizational meeting from the Monday after the Tuesday to sometime in December after results are certified. That's how it's written in all three of these options. So that resignation would be at that time, once the vote is certified.
When the vote is certified, not on election day.
Correct.
All right, so not that I'm going to go through this again, but somebody who would be willing to do that, to save the city the expense of a special election, could do that, occupy the seat until the votes are certified, and if they were successful, fine. If not, there would be someone elected to fill that seat and finish the term. All right.
So I have a question about that. It seems a bit unfair if someone is running for a seat hoping that it would be vacant. And if it isn't vacant, because, for example, in my seat, if I decided 90 days before the election that I was going to resign my at-large seat, then someone who wanted to run for that seat would enter the campaign process. But if I lost, they were out too. Where would they go? Oh, I see, you would resign it totally. Got it. No, so in this last election, we would have two people running and one, they would both win. No, just one would. One would be spending a lot of money on a campaign.
So if you use the example from the last election, you had two council members that were running for a mayoral spot. Both council members would resign their positions effective the election. If neither one of the candidates won mayor, then you would end up with 3 vacancies, and that's how we would run it on the ballot. Because
Okay.
the two council members will have already given up their spots proactively, future, and then the mayor spot that's open. So we would run three spots and
simultaneously. Interesting.
If you choose to put this on the ballot for electors to consider.
Well, the other thing that I had wanted, I'm looking to see, one more thing, Counselor Waters, that I was wondering, instead of doing any of these options, would there be a possibility to put, that we appoint someone to the vacancy?
So Mayor Peck and members of council, the last time we did put that in as one of the options, and you all said that that's not the direction you wanted to go, that you wanted us to research this option. You may remember back, we talked about a couple of things. First of all, you don't have to do anything. This kind of a situation, I think, doesn't happen very often, where you have a census year that is pulling the data so that we can't do a coordinated special election. Normally, you would just do a special election, as the charter currently says today. So you could absolutely do nothing and have a special election when there's a vacancy in this particular kind of case. You could add one of these wordings. You could appoint if you wanted to. It really is your decision on what you want to present to the voters.
I think for the city's staffing, it would be easier to go with option 2, from my perspective. Counselor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. So just to kind of circle back to this, there would be no requirement, right? You and I were both in this situation. Neither of us under this would have been required to resign. But if one of us had wanted to, just to save the city the election, that would have been an option, to say, look, I'm all in here. If I lose this, if I lose the mayoral election, I'm also going to give up the seat, but that's my choice, not required.
Okay, and that's if you go with option 1.
Yeah.
The mayor
Now,
just mentioned option 2.
let me just add one more comment, and I understand the complexity and hopefully unique this year. Hopefully, no matter what's happens 10 years from now with the next census, the county clerk would have the capacity. Or, note to self, in 9.5 years, somebody's going to pull out of the tickler file, remember to line up our consultants, early. But that said, in whatever year this occurs, there would be an expense. I was elected in a special election. I have no idea what the cost of that election was. But as I recall, Don, you did get some estimates on a special election, and the cost varied based on time of year, or I don't remember all the variables. But whatever that number was, as I recall, I thought initially it was like $65,000, but the number we saw from Don was way north of that. So regardless of whether or not it's a census year, it would save the city that expense if somebody chose to do that.
Correct. Yes, and I think 65,000 is a normal year. And with the paper shortage that we faced, as well as the census year, as well as, having to do it as a private election, the cost just continued to be astronomical in this particular case.
One more discussion item. I'm going to change to the voluntary resignation, option 1. So, yes, I think we do need a motion. Counselor, who is number 6? You. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. My first preference is actually not to do anything, to leave it as it stood for, obviously, probably quite a while now. But if there is a motion concerning the options presented to us, I'd prefer the voluntary requirement versus the mandatory.
Do you want to make the motion? Counselor Hidalgo Ferring.
Thank you. I do have a question. So currently, so like when, or at the last election, so when Mayor Peck and Councilmember Waters were running, neither of them had the opportunity or the option to resign. So we would have to have this into, okay.
I mean, you know, of course you can resign at any time, but right, this particular option where the opportunity was to resign in order to create an opening at the same election was not available.
Was not available. Okay, thank you, that clarified my question. I'm leaning towards option one.
Okay. Counselor Waters.
I'm going to move that we give staff direction to prepare language, if this requires this charter change, prepare language for a charter change to be put before the voters for them to consider option 2.
Second.
Mandatory?
I'm sorry, option 1, voluntary. I hadn't scrolled up far enough. Option 1, voluntary. I don't think it ought to be a requirement that a sitting elected official has to resign to run for another position.
Counselor Martin, is it going to second that?
I'm not going to second that.
Okay, I will second that. So do we have discussion on that motion? Counselor Martin?
Yeah, you know, city had to pay for a special election when Mayor Bagley won mayor. City needed a special election when Mayor Peck won mayor. I'm not sure that that should be a decision that a council member should get to make, you know, unilaterally to cost the city $60,000 or more. So I would much prefer option 2, and I'm not going to vote for option 1.
Seeing no other discussion, let's vote on the motion. So that carries 4-1 with Counselor Martin descending and Counselor Yarbrough absent.
Thank you very much.
So we are now on our second general business item, which is participation in Colorado's paid family leave insurance program. And that was, I am the one that made the motion to bring this back for reconsideration. So my question is, do we have somebody from the state here that would like to explain their side of this?
So Mayor Peck, we made a request to the state, and originally they thought maybe they would be able to come or be able to be on the phone, and then in the end they declined, but they sent a pre-recorded presentation for you. So I would love to show that if you're ready.
We have a point of order by Counselor Waters.
Just so technically we don't go through this in the way we're supposed to, the motion was to put this back on the agenda that was for reconsideration.
Correct.
So don't we have to go through 2 votes? The first would be to vote to undo what we did before, and then to reconsider the motion, or the option, right?
Tim is nodding, so I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, so I think the first, just procedurally, the first motion would be to repeal, I guess, or is that the word?
To reconsider.
Reconsider.
Okay.
And that vote, if that gets approved, then it's,
We move on.
then we actually consider the substance of the proposal or the issue itself.
Yes, it's my understanding that the motion to reconsider takes you back in time to right before you voted last time.
Okay, so I'm going to move to, again, to put forward to reconsider the family leave motion that we made a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so it's been moved by me, Mayor Peck, and seconded by Counselor Hidalgo Ferring to reconsider the Family Leave Act motion. A spell? Or do you have any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. I just want to explain that I'm going to be voting against the motion to reconsider, as I believe in the last week we've received ample correspondence from the employees, who I think are the largest stakeholders in this conversation, with all due respect to the people that worked hard in the legislature to pass this program at the state level.
Councilor Martin.
Yeah, I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem. Why go through two votes when we can do it with one? Because we passed the opt-out provision last time. If we don't reconsider, it stands. And that's obviously, by the volume of email, what the employees want. So I'm going to vote no too.
Councilor Hidalgo Faring.
So it is my understanding, and Assistant City Manager Sandy Cedar, please correct me if I'm wrong. In order for us to move forward with hearing the pre-recorded message, to have some further questions answered, we do need to reconsider first.
Yes, my understanding that if
Yes.
the motion to reconsider fails, then
We're
I'll go sit
done.
down.
There were some questions I had, and just really some issues of due diligence. I totally agree. Like I do feel that what the employees want. I wish that I had that feedback prior to the first vote. To be quite honest, it would have made my decision a lot easier. I kind of felt like we were up in the air we're kind of guessing where people are, and this really codified that this is what our employees want. But I do have some questions, and I do want to see, what this presentation holds. So I'll be voting yes.
Okay, let's vote. Doesn't look like there's any more discussion. So the vote is on, do we want to reconsider the Family Leave Act vote? And that fails, with Councilor Hidalgo Faring and myself voting for, Councilor Waters, Councilor Martin, and Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez voting against.
And Mayor Peck, I'm happy to send you all the link.
That
It's
would be
just an
great.
email link that the state sent, so I will continue to send that to you.
And I do want to make a little statement as to why I even brought this back to reconsider, because I'd been approached by the author of the bill and some other legislators that basically scolding us for voting the way you asked us to opt out. But because of that, we did get incredible feedback, and I'm very happy that I made that motion, because we wouldn't have heard from the people. So I'm glad. Worked well. Councilor Susie Hidalgo Faring, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to pretty much say the same thing as far as, my gratitude to the employees for sending their responses. The other piece of information that I felt was very telling was the packet you sent. It seems that, our state needs to do a little more work before they're making requirements on us. I see it in education all the time, unfunded mandates that are put on employees, institutions that we're left having to pick up the slack on. And it appears that this unfortunately might be one of them that I really recommend that the state take a closer look on how they're going to build sustainability for this. And really get buy-in overwhelmingly for the rest of the state to participate in this program. Well, I think it's good in what they're trying to get across. It seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions, and this is not a time, and I really don't want to put our employees at the risk of, I would have voted my same direction. I just really wanted to hear what they had to say. What were some of the questions that I had, if they were able to answer, and I'm probably not going to get it from a pre-recorded message. But I would really like to see the video. So if you have it, please send it my way. Thank you.
We'll send the video to you all.
Thank you. And again, thank you to the employees for reaching out to us. That was important. So we're now at the final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? Come on up. Give us your name and address. And you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Joe. I actually live here in Longmont, right off of Main and 15th, a pretty rough little neighborhood you guys might know about. And it's yeah, they have a little bit of trouble up there and stuff. And it's I don't have anything really prepared. You know, I'm basically just reacting to both sides of the conversation about the gun control. And I think it's just awesome that we had people from both sides coming in. And it's but the thing is though is that we had this really animated guy that was talking about how what's called about how Jacksonville is the worst, murder capital of the United States and everything else like that. But by his definition, he was talking about because there was more guns and everything else like that. Talking about how like Chicago and what's called and all these other St. Louis and stuff like that are not as bad, not as bad as that. But by looking at that, it means gun control. If you take gun control, you think it changes crime, and it actually stops crime. That means Chicago should be the safest city in the United States. New York and California should be the safest states in the United States. Mexico should be one of the safest countries in the world, but that's not the case because gun control does not work. So here's the problem that I have with this. I've been living here in Longmont for about 7 years, lived in Colorado for about 30. And since I've been here, I've been seeing the gun control taking over more and more. It's called incrementalism. And that's what's happening here tonight too. So it's, you look at Boulder, what they did, they came across with all these new laws based off of a knee-jerk reaction to something that happened at their grocery store. And not a single one of those laws, mind you, would have made a difference on that person coming up from Arvada, buying a gun legally, and basically it was a terrorist attack. And they don't even talk about it. There's nobody even knows much about what's going on with that case in general. Same thing with Louisville, Lafayette, and Superior. There's outside forces coming in, pushing these gun control laws. And it's now here you guys are talking about. I was actually happy that you guys. I didn't hear anything about Longmont until today. Talking about new gun laws, and now here it is today, and you guys are talking about what's called just the ordinance, the four ordinances that you guys have up right now, and not a single one would make a difference as far as any kind of crime coming from outside, the open carry, everything else like that, and you guys have to know this. I mean, you guys have to look at the crime statistics. And know that this gun control laws that you guys are has been proposed does not benefit anybody in the city other than a feel good. So now you guys actually have a chance to make a difference though. You guys actually have a chance to actually dig deep and actually find something that actually makes a difference with the crime in the city. I mean, we have open, I live near the Bar L. I live near what's called the Lamplighter. There was a stabbing in the Lamplighter, right in front of the Lamplighter just last week. There was a shooting down in front of on Main Street, just down in front of the cemetery. None of these laws would have stopped any of those. But, all the homeless populations, there's so many more problems in Longmont than gun control. All I ask is that you guys dig down deep and actually look for a solution other than trying to take away from law-abiding citizens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor and council remarks. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I listened to all of the public with interest, and what I find is maybe that the public was not listening to us with as much interest. I was glad to see Dr. Kukik explain that, in fact, the Second Amendment, as it is currently settled law by the last Supreme Court challenge, the Heller case, allows considerable freedom to regulate what firearms may be had and used in what contexts. And I think that that is reasonable. Living in a rural area where you're the only house for 5 miles in either direction is not the same thing as living in Denver, where you can't fire a shell without hitting something, and you'd be lucky if it isn't somebody. And Denver was the first city to have weapons regulation of its own during the state preemption based on that argument. So I want the public who is worried about its firearm rights being infringed to understand not only that they are operating from an interpretation of the Second Amendment that is not the settled law of the land, and they need to do that if they are going to have successful arguments. On the other hand, while I, in sentiment, align myself with Moms Demand Action in that I think that the data is overwhelmingly showing that the massive amount of guns in the United States and the attitudes toward guns in the United States probably has something to do with the fact that we have so many more school shootings and so many more firearm-related crimes and suicides than other countries do. But I want people to understand that while the Giffords template laws would, I believe, certainly in my opinion, would be extremely effective if implemented at the national level, and quite effective if implemented at the state level, that I don't think they'll be effective at all implemented at the local level. And I think that, I think it's performative, and I'm mad at the General Assembly for putting this on the city in the first place, but mostly I don't want people living here to believe that they're going to be safer because of these local ordinances, because I just don't see how they could make any difference. So the reason I'm saying this is because I want people's expectations to be reasonable. And what I think those expectations should be is that this city council is not considering anything that will infringe on anyone's Second Amendment rights. And also, this city council is not considering anything that's going to make a huge difference in how safe we are. And I think this is tragic, but that's what I think the situation is.
Councilor Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Peck. I'm going to reiterate a little bit of what Councilmember Martin just said. I did speak to Stan Garnett after the legislature passed the bill a couple of years ago and wondered what was the rationale for the potential of creating this patchwork of ordinances. And his answer was, honestly, I won't quote him, and if I misrepresent this, hopefully he'll hold me to task or to account. But it was performative. It was the legislature trying to respond to the high level of emotion associated with what happened in Boulder. So I too, like Councilmember Martin, probably resentment is not an overstatement of the state legislature putting municipalities in a position not only to go through this on our own, but to create patchworks. And it's more, I'm more resentful maybe because when we went through the process, we took the same kind of testimony we took this evening in the adoption of a resolution in 2019, where we weren't regulating anything. We were just recommending other elected officials do their jobs. We didn't hear a peep from another elected official. There wasn't a city council member in a municipality in the county of Boulder. We did not hear from a city or from a county commissioner. We didn't hear from a school board member anywhere in Boulder County to say, let's amplify that same message to encourage our state legislators to do their jobs. And when then I see state legislators, which I read about in the paper, going to the Superior, the Louisville council meeting, and commending the state, or commending the city council for passing the regulations that they passed. I just wish somebody had asked Senator Fenberg why they didn't. If it was so admirable for the city council to have done what they did, why the state legislature didn't do that, which is the level at which it should have been done. So to any legislature, the ones who represent these districts, I feel the same way, that they punted this to us It was not responsible on their part. It puts us in a position to go through a performative process as well for the most part, unless we're willing to do the serious heavy lift of a community to actually take on what would become a changing culture. Because otherwise, it's going to be time and a lot of emotion, and I'm willing to do my part to help advance the cause, but until we get really serious about, I can envision the Longmont protocol that could be held up to municipalities across the country to say, that's the way you go about it. Not through regulations, but through a deep engagement with the community and articulating values and then translating those values into how we treat one another, the kinds of conversations we have, what we do with the kind of engagement that we and the kinds of events that we sponsor as a city. So I don't know if we're up to that or not, but I think we just ought to acknowledge, in the interest of accountability, and unless we're willing to do it, then we're going to go through an exercise and still lament that we didn't make the difference we'd like to make.
So, if there's anybody listening still in the gun world out there, I just want to say that the remarks that you made are suggestions that the schools need to take on the responsibility of gun control, that the city does not tell the school district what to do. All of those suggestions you have that the school needs to do, you need to go to the school board and get them to do that, because it's a total different governmental entity. So I doubt anybody's still listening, but I think that's very important. Oh, go to the school board, Kathy. So, city manager, do you have any remarks for us, Harold?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City attorney, or you are now the city acting city attorney? I heard you. So with that, we are coming to the end of our meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved in, by Councilor Waters, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. All those in favor vote.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned. The motion carried.